gotta be detailed, precise, and informed.
That's DPI.
Which is our draft breakdowns, our first round breakdowns. Now, there's a few teams in here that don't have first round picks, and typically we're breaking down the first round. But I do have some notes and some discussion points for Tyler and I to go through, so you all 32 teams still get covered, and you fan of a team without a first round pick still has some names to look out for on day 2. But without further ado, we're getting right in to the AFC South. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of the teams if your team has not been covered yet. But we'll start with the Tennessee Titans, who pick at number 4. Tyler, go ahead. Who do you have at number 4 for the Titans?
So all off season so far, I have been having them select Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. However, our content last week actually changed my mind as to what Jeremiah Love's outlook is going to be like. And so I actually have Tennessee selecting a linebacker from Ohio State. I have them selecting Sonny Styles. I've actually got Sonny Styles as the second linebacker off the board, but I have Tennessee selecting that linebacker out of Ohio State. I think there's going to be a lot of linebackers picked in the top 10.
Yeah, and Sonny Styles is interesting because he just essentially broke the raw athleticism score for an off-ball linebacker. And so, I mean, I think he does bring a little pass rush juice, but it would be one of the higher selected off-ball linebackers I've ever seen. Arvell Reese is more of a hybrid pass rushing style. That's why he's going so high. But I would not hate if the Tennessee Titans went Sonny Styles, and I don't hate your analysis there either. Is there a reason why you moved off? Because last week we kind of discussed, hey, we know the Giants with Harbaugh are going to take an off-ball linebacker. Why do you think that Robert Saleh is going to be so high on a guy like Sonny Styles?
So Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese as well. Like I said, the only reason I have Styles going Tennessee is because I have Arizona taking Reese. But both those Ohio State linebackers are just such freak athletes. But the main reason that I have them going Sonny Styles over, like I said, Jeremiah Love, the reason I made that switch is because so many there isn't anyone mocking Tennessee to take a linebacker. CBS and Mel Kiper predict David Bailey, an edge out of Texas Tech. And then NFL.com says Arvell Reese as well, that linebacker. There just isn't going to be teams, or excuse me, there's not a lot of analysis that continue to say Tennessee is going to take an offensive player. It really does seem to be one of those top edge or top linebackers that a lot of reporters are going with.
Yeah, and I'm also going to kind of take the same approach that I did with the Giants, where I predicted that they would go Sonny Styles, because I mentioned his name earlier already. Robert Saleh is the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans, and he was previously a head coach of the New York Jets, and he was previously the defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. So one of the reasons in favor of your analysis of them going Styles is he had Fred Warner, and Sonny Styles compares a lot to Fred Warner. Good size, great speed, great vertical, super athlete, going to be a great linebacker. Maybe he wants his Fred Warner. But when Robert Saleh was actually a head coach, his first round picks were both edge rushers for the Jets. Jermaine Johnson was selected as an edge rusher. He's more of like the hybrid linebacker. He's more of the Arvell Reese type edge rusher. He's actually traded for Jermaine Johnson this offseason, right? So that leads me to believe that he's already got his hybrid edge rusher. He drafted the guy back in 2022. He traded for him this year. So now he needs another edge rusher that's more of a traditional edge rusher. And that's why I think a lot of the mocks are saying David Bailey at 4. And I absolutely agree with him. David Bailey is the best pass rushing defensive end in the draft. I think he's got like a 98 PFF pass rush grade, which is one of the highest I've ever seen. And he would be the perfect fit in this Tennessee Titans revamped defense. But I see your argument. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I just think that David Bailey should be the selection over Styles.
I agree, but my mock draft 1.0 I have David Bailey going number 2. So like I said, I have a lot of edges and linebackers going in this top 10, but David Bailey, Arvell Reese, and Sonny Styles are all going to be hits if the Tennessee Titans selects them. It really just depends on who gets selected at number 2 and number 3 overall, who's available.
I honestly agree with you. I think that, and we agree that Fernando Mendoza goes 1. We talked about that last episode, but then it's a matter of Reese or Bailey. And I think one or the other will go at 2 and 4 because number 3, I don't think an edge will go at 3. You're just saying if Bailey goes at 2, then it will be Styles rather than Reese, and Reese will fall lower.
Yes.
Yes. And I got it. So, but Tennessee, either way, no matter if they get any of those 3 guys that we just kind of talked about, I think they're getting a really talented player. I think all of those guys are excellent.
And Tennessee has a lot of cap room as well still. So the offseason's not over yet. There is still ability to sign some free agents that are out there. There's a lot of hope if I'm a Titans fan. That there's a lot of hope and ability, I think.
Definitely. There's only one other team in the AFC South that has a first-round pick, and they are the Houston Texans. They pick at 28. And I labored over this pick. Initially I had some offensive linemen here, and then I'd switched to defensive linemen, and then I switched back to offensive linemen, and then I switched back to defensive linemen, where I ended up on a prospect that I think is super fascinating. And it's Caleb Banks out of Florida. Not sure how much research you've done on him, Tyler. But
sorry, go ahead.
But he's 6'6", 330, and he plays interior defensive lineman. So he's really lengthy, right? But he can't tackle. That's it. His deficiency. It's like that Moneyball scene. It's like, what's his one deficiency? It's like he has a weird arm angle. Yeah, Caleb Banks just can't tackle, which you would argue is a pretty integral part of being a defensive lineman, right? Is tackling. Would you say?
A little bit.
But in the late first round...
So let me ask you this for the viewers real quick. Let me ask this question for the viewers. If I haven't done research and I hear you say he can't tackle, what does make him a first-round draft pick?
It is the fact that he is one of like 5 humans with these traits and builds. When you watch his tape and when you look at the way he plays football, the laws of physics should prevent someone this big from moving like that. And so it's kind of like, when you can get a guy, it's almost like in the NBA when you can get a 7'6" player. Like, is he going to be the greatest shooter from beyond the arc or mid-range? No, but he's also 7'6". So there's clearly some applicable skills that you can mold and make him a good interior football player. That's what Caleb Banks is. And when you have the best pass rushing duo in football with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, both top 5 as far as PFF grades are concerned for pass rushing, I think that adding a super freak athlete with great traits, crazy length, and good athleticism, it's going to be hard. At 6'6", 330, he ran a 5.04 40-yard dash. It's very, very fast.
Yeah.
And it shows up on the field, too. It's not just 40 speed. He's got quickness laterally, and I think that you can't really pass up somebody like that. With 35-inch arms going up against guards, he's just going to be able to control them and move them wherever he wants. So maybe he's not going to make the tackle, but he's going to move somebody who's weaker and smaller out of the way so that Danielle Hunter or Will Anderson can make the tackle, you'd hope, or one of their great linebackers in To'oto or Azeez Al-Shaair. But I like Caleb Banks in that spot. Who do you have them taking? Because this is nobody really knows where to mock this guy because he has deficiencies, right? I'm just putting him here.
Sure, and actually, CBS Sports actually agrees with you spot on. They have Caleb Banks going to Houston at 28. The guy that I landed on is Caleb Lomu, an offensive tackle out of Utah. He's 6'6", 313 pounds. The Texans, I think, have struggled to really get their franchise tackle ever since the departure of Tunsil a couple years ago, and I really think they need to protect C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud ran for his life last year, it seemed like. They need a good tackle, and I like Caleb Lomu out of Utah.
Additionally, the acquisition of David Montgomery would lend them to, build up that offensive line, because Montgomery thrived when he had a great O-line in Detroit. So it would stand to reason that, an offensive lineman, it is a big need for the Texans, maybe even a bigger need than defensive interior position. So I don't hate that at all. Like I said, I went back and forth between tackle, guard, and defensive interior position. So I will say usually I lock in picks, but this one is the one I'm less sure about. Right.
Sure. And once you get to the 28th pick in the first round, so much can happen. I mean, does Caden Proctor, the offensive tackle, get taken by then, or is he still available? Because if he's taken by then yeah, maybe they go D-line. But if he's available, then they go get Proctor. So those first 10 picks, by the time we get to draft pick, we usually know who's going to maybe go in that top 12, top 15, just maybe not the right order. After that, it just becomes who's going to throw the deck of cards out the window and throw everything off.
Right, exactly.
But offensive line and defensive line do seem to be where the Texans are going to go, just depending on availability, I think, also.
Agreed. Like it depends on who's there. And one of the reasons I put Banks there is because I think he'll be there. We don't know if Lomu will be there. If it depends on how many if there's a run on tackles from 8 to 17 or to 23, I saw a lot of like Max Hedgador mocks for the Texans, another offensive tackle. And I saw a lot of people saying, hey, the Texans might just trade down. And I don't know, maybe they do. But
they are known for making some pretty big first round trades. Just a couple years ago in Kansas City, they had pick 2 and then traded to go get pick 3 also. So it wouldn't shock me if the Texans make some kind of crazy trade.
Yeah, that was a very aggressive move. But speaking of not knowing, go ahead.
I was going to say that was wild because I was in Kansas City when that happened. So on the screen, they're showing C.J. Stroud, who had just been drafted number 2 overall. And then you see trade, Texans are on the clock. And the whole crowd just goes, oh, and they're showing C.J. Stroud on the board or on the screen. So he turns out, he's like, what happened? He's trying to figure out what did the crowd just react to? And the initial rumors was that C.J. Stroud had just been traded away after being, and that's how they got the number 3 pick. But just absolutely nuts. I can't wait for the wild story of this year's draft, if it's the Texans or someone else.
And speaking of, you were in Kansas City. Would you happen to be at an event that we're covering this year for That's DPI? Would you like to give the viewers a little preview of potentially what we could be doing that evening?
Absolutely. So that evening, the Kansas City Chiefs are hosting a private draft fest at Power and Light District, and Zach and I have secured our place at that private event. It is not open to the public, but it is open to us. We will be at Power and Light District on Thursday, April 23rd, covering round 1 of the draft from Power and Light District in downtown Kansas City, and we are very excited for it.
That DPI on location has an early. We won't be going to Pittsburgh for the actual draft, but we will be doing some live kind of content about what the Kansas City Chiefs do for their season ticket holders. So excited to be covering that, a kind of a surprise first episode of That's DPI on location. But moving on, speaking of hard to predict, the Jags and the Colts both are without their first round picks. The Jacksonville Jaguars, of course, traded one away to go get Travis Hunter, and the Colts traded one away to pick up Sauce Gardner. Neither trade really helped either team. Jags didn't go super far in the playoffs, and the Colts didn't even make the playoffs. But we'll start with the Colts, who currently have a top 50 pick. So at 48, and I think that they're going to draft a linebacker here. It's hard to say which linebacker will be available. I mocked Jeremiah Trotter earlier to another team without a first-round pick. Okay. We're getting
Peanut sighting.
Yeah, Peanut sighting. She's here. I did mock Jeremiah Trotter, but he's another guy that could go here. But in my notes, I have Anthony Hill from Texas. He was a great run defending off-ball linebacker, 6'3", 240. And I think that he could make an impact on that Colts defense, which is already really good. I think the Colts are a really complete team. There's not a glaring need that's staring up at they have a great line, good running back. They have a quarterback, and they are they're just going to add talent. And I think at 48, that's what you have to do. Just kind of pick best player available. But what do you think about them adding a linebacker?
I like that idea. I think an edge rusher could also be a possibility that they add as well. Like you said, there's no glaring issue. So if the first round has a lot of edge rushers if the first round happens to have a lot of linebackers, then some of those late first round edge rushers are suddenly available to them in that second round, or vice versa. If there's a lot of linebackers and edge rushers, maybe a wide receiver could possibly be available. It just depends. I hate saying it just depends on the picks prior to them, but that really is what this coverage is when you don't have a first round pick. But linebacker or edge would be the positions that I would look out for the Colts.
But now moving on to another AFC South team without a first round pick. Their pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars, is at 56. So they're even outside the top 50 because they did so well last year, but obviously they did not go as far as they likely would want. And I have them also going linebacker because you have to replace Devin Lloyd, who they lost in free agency. And he was a cornerstone, of course, had that incredible pick six in the Chiefs game, right? I mean, it's one of the plays of the season for a linebacker, and they have to replace that production somehow. And I think they go with Jacob Rodriguez if he's available. Once again, it's a huge depends on the way the board falls before them, because Jacob Rodriguez was, according to PFF, is one of the best linebackers in college football. I think he was in the upper 90s in terms of PFF grade. So I would be curious to see where he goes and if the Jags would even consider trading up for him or something like that. But once again, linebacker is who I have them going. But do you have any thoughts on maybe who they go with?
The departure of Devin Lloyd is huge, and they do have to fill that. I don't think they'll trade up. I think all of the linebackers that you really got to go get are going to be those first-round linebackers. I think once you get out of those early to mid first-round linebackers, anyone from round 2 and 3 is going to be very consistent. I think teams go with a lot more need rather than pick selection, if you want to call it that. Like, there's a difference between pick 20 and pick 9 as to who you can take. Once you get into that second round, it doesn't matter. It's all based on team need, and they do need a linebacker. So I don't think they're going to trade up to go get them. Yeah,
but the reason that they would consider maybe doing that is he had a 93 defensive grade per PFF, best for any off-ball linebacker, better than Sonny Styles. 94.8 run defense grade, best of any linebacker, and a 92 coverage grade, best of any linebacker. You're saying, why isn't he where Sonny Styles is? Because he's 6'1", 235, and he didn't blow minds at the combine, right? So clearly he's a great football player. He's super headsy. He was the green dot at Texas Tech, but with a 4.57 40 and a 1.6 10-yard split, he's not the super athlete that would, cause you to really reconsider taking a linebacker, a low positional value guy, maybe earlier on in the draft. So I think the second round's a good spot for him, and Jacksonville would be a good fit for him.
I want to change what I just said 30 seconds ago. I just did some live research. The Jacksonville Jaguars have 11 total draft picks. If he is available early in the second round, yeah, I can see them going up to trade them. So yes, they do not have a first round draft pick, and I don't see them trading into the first round. But yes, I can absolutely see them trading up 5 spots to go get that guy, given the fact that they have 11 total draft picks. The Jaguars
100%.
will trade somewhere.
Yeah,
They will
will
not
be
draft
moving
11 players.
for sure. And I think they have to build on their season last year and add talent where they lost it. And I think priority one should be middle linebacker because there wasn't a great free agency option. I mean, the best free agency option was their free agent, right? Who went to Carolina. Yeah. So I think that they have to prioritize that, and getting someone in the top 50 where they currently do not have a pick in is probably where they need to sit. But any other analysis? Did you like what I had to say about Rodriguez and his upper 90s, mid 90s PFF grades for every single important kind of category?
He's not a guy that I have a ton of research on, to be honest, but those stats are definitely something that could be very valued. And if the Jaguars can see that and they're 5 picks away, go get him. He sounds like a freak of an athlete. Go get him.
94 tackles and 4 picks. Sounds like a guy that Devin Lloyd that would base his play off of Devin Lloyd, so he could almost replace him as early as his rookie season. At least the Jaguars, that would be the hope for them, despite the fact that he's undersized. But